What are your emotions? What's going through your mind as you get ready to play your last home game?
I really haven't thought about it as my last home game as much. I'm sure it'll kind of set in when I'm on the field. All week, I think it's kind of been a transition from, the bye week kind of getting over what had happened the week before. And now I think everybody's in kind of good spirits, and overall as a team we're kind of pressing forward, and I think everybody's excited about UConn. But personally, hasn't really set in that it's my last home game yet.
How long did that loss linger before you kind of moved on?
For me, a little longer than usual. You like to think that there's that 24-hour rule, and most guys, I feel like, go by that rule. But being that it was a bye week, it was a little harder because you didn't really have something to look forward to just yet. So maybe a little longer, a couple of days longer, at least for me anyway. But last week was good in that we got to get back to the fundamentals. And I know people say that a lot, but we truly did get back to that last week during the bye week. And I thought it was really helpful for everybody. We did things we worked on things a lot longer that we hadn't worked on in a while. So, everybody feels fresh, but at the same time, we feel very clean, and everything feels like it's kind of smooth right now.
Eager to get back out there after. I mean, you probably would have liked to have played the following week.
Yeah, I actually, someone had asked me that when we were up in Syracuse. I think it was Andrea Adelson. She had said something about that, and I said, honestly, after a loss like this, you want to play the next day. And not only were we not doing that, but we weren't playing for 2 weeks, so it was kind of tough. But at the same time, I think we needed it.
What do you do on a Saturday without football? I mean, there's all these games going on,
Yeah.
and you're not part of it.
I guess I just act as a fan. I wake up early, and I kind of wait around for those first games to start. When I was back home, games would start at 11 because of the time difference. So I had to wait a little longer now that I'm over here. But you just become a fan, and as much as I try to just enjoy it on my day off, I always find myself watching it as a typical offensive lineman would. Kind of like you're watching film. So I don't even really, sometimes I don't even know the score of the games I'm watching. I'm just watching technique and trying to figure out, the offensive scheme and what kind of plays that they're running. But, really, I think when you're this far into the season, when you're old like me, as far as football is concerned, you just take those days and you just rest, you just lay down, let your body recuperate.
Does it make you feel any better when you see other undefeated teams lose?
No, I think I wouldn't say better, but I think it kind of puts things into perspective. You realize how fragile it really is. College football is football. Football is pure, and it's just, anybody could lose on any given day. And I know it's cliche to say that, but look what happened to Kansas State. Oregon and Stanford was a little closer, but Stanford's a really good team. So I think some people saw that maybe coming. But any given day, whenever guys show up to play, and I think everybody shows up to play, and I think it's a misconception. People say that you overlook a team. I don't think that happens as much as maybe those teams got really amped up to play you, and things sometimes just go right. You only have 12 opportunities to show for, and one of them's bound not to go your way. And it just shows that it's very, very hard to stay undefeated in college football. So.
Did you watch the Rutgers Cincinnati game?
I did, yeah, I did watch it. I was flipping back and forth, but I watched most of it. It was a really good defensive battle from what I saw. Cincinnati got some pressure on the Rutgers quarterback, and Rutgers defense played extremely well. Only allowing them 3 points. So, all that I took away from that was those are two really good teams, and we played one of them, and we need to play another one. So.
I think you'll be 40 someday and still sitting in front of the tube and watching a game, no matter what level, and watching the center to see what he does.
Yeah, I think I will be. I could maybe admit that throughout high school, even though I was offensive lineman, I still watched it as a fan. I would just watch the football. But ever since I got to college, you can't help but. Even during the off season, when I'm not playing full time and when we're just training, or even when I'm home on break, I still watch the center. And I still watch the offensive line, and it's just a different way to watch football. And I feel like I appreciate it a little more that way because plays do start with them. And a lot of times people wonder, what happened on that play, and they don't know because they're not watching the offensive line. So, sometimes if something doesn't go right, it could be either, or if something does go right, it could be because of them. So it's kind of, I feel like everything kind of starts up front, whether it's D-line or offensive line. So watching it that way, I have a little more insight when I get older, I don't see that changing at all.
With
Most teams
Rutgers,
have their seasons divided into 2 segments by open week. I mean, you all have yours basically in 3 segments.
Right.
And what was different between the first open week and this one, in terms of recovery, focus, that kind of thing?
Right. I think, well, you're just a little deeper in the season. So practices on the bye week, you know, we were getting the job done, but it was a lot quicker. You know, it was you were getting in and getting out. It was, I think we used the week really to just recover mentally. I think physically, you know, at this point in the season, you're going to feel about as good as you're going to feel. I don't think there's much that's going to change that. But you know, I think everybody just need to get away for a day or two. The difference with maybe the first bye week is, you know, I mean, we were getting ready to go into conference play, I believe, and you know, we hadn't really won an opener in I don't know how long, and personally, you know, I hadn't been part of a game where we had beaten Pitt, you know. So this one, I think it's a little different theme. I think guys are just eager just to get back out there and just prove people wrong and things like that. But other than that, there's not much difference.
You were talking about how when people watch the game, they wonder what happened and they don't know because they don't watch the line.
Yeah.
During the game, how often do you not know what happened because you're involved in the
Right.
search warfare?
Well, yeah. A lot of times, I mean, you got a guy, in my case, usually the heaviest guy on the team in the nose guard, and he's a pretty wide guy. So a lot of times I don't know what's going on. You know, I'm just trying to do my job. But you can usually tell, depending on where you're playing, you know, whether it's a good or bad thing. Because if we're at home and I'm on the bottom of a pile and I hear everybody cheer, then I know something good happened. But if we're away and it's really quiet, I'm usually pretty excited. So, but as far as knowing what went wrong on any particular play, it is very hard to know. And that's where, you know, having a close offensive line comes into play, because, you know, usually after a play, you can ask somebody, you know, like, what went wrong here? Like, what did you see that I didn't see? And our group of guys is usually pretty good about communicating that. And, you know, you never want to dwell on a previous play, but sometimes you got to get things corrected immediately. So, you know, you ask your right tackle or your left guard or something like that, what did you see that I didn't see, just so we can get it corrected. So, but yeah, there are, you know, instances when I'm on the field that I have no idea what went wrong. I feel like I did what I was supposed to do, and things don't go your way, but that's why it's a team sport. So.
how would you assess your career?
Wow, I've never been asked that, so I don't know. I'd say long. You know, so I think it was before the Syracuse game. I don't know who told me, they was like, this is your 44th start, and you would have had more had you not been in the hospital last year. I don't know what the record is. I'm pretty sure Eric has it. So yeah, so I'm not getting that one. But you know, given what I've been through, I guess what I would want to be remembered for is, you know, being tough and being a leader. And despite my multiple surgeries, I've still started more games than most people who've came through here. You know, I would like to think that, you know, I've upheld the standard that's been set before me. You know, being a leader, staying out of trouble, doing the right thing, fighting through adversity, and just kind of being a mainstay. You know, battling through things that a lot of people may not battle through, just to be a part of something. That's kind of like how I would like to be remembered. But it goes by fast, and I've never been asked that question, so I may have a little more time to think about it. I might come up with something better. But as of right now, yeah.
What do you feel like the legacy will be of this senior class, and does it really hinge on getting back to a BCS?
I think everybody knows from day one that getting back to, you know, our goal is to win a Big East championship, and with that comes a BCS bowl. You know, I don't know if we'll be judged solely on that. You know, if we are, then, you know, that's fine. I mean, you know, because I think when you set a standard like the teams previously have, I mean, what else do you really have to measure up against? So I don't know. You know, maybe by the fans we'll be measured by that. I really don't know. You know, I'd like to think that our coaches and the guys that I've played with, the younger guys, would measure us by our leadership. You know, our hard work, and although there is, you know, there's just a handful of us. I'd like to think that almost all of us contribute or start. You know, I mean, you talk about, you know, Alex Cupper, who's extremely important to this team, and Andrell Smith, Will Stein, who doesn't start but is also extremely important to this team, Nate Nord, who's come, you know, really, really far, and when he's not out there, people notice because, you know, he does a really good job with his perimeter blocking. Just guys like that contribute all over the field. Adrian Buchel, And I mean, we have a small senior class, but I like to think that when we're out of here, guys will measure us by, although we're small, we had a big contribution as far as the team is concerned. I like to think that we lead by example, but ultimately, I think we're going to be judged by whether we get to a BCS game or not. So,
How many surgeries have you had since you've been here?
since I've been here,
Well, overall, yes.
it's 6 or 7. I can't remember. It's I've had a couple. I broke my leg in high school. Had a couple on that. Had a right knee surgery when I was here. I had a couple on my wrist before I got here, and had my left shoulder done this past January. I know I'm missing something. I don't know. I feel good right now, though.
Do you ever think this might not be worth it after 6 surgeries?
It never once crossed my mind whether I wanted to continue to play or not. It did cross my mind, however, whether I was going to be able to play or not. So physically, I was just like, okay, maybe this isn't for me. But I knew emotionally, I'll never be ready to stop playing football. I don't know if anybody is. But for me, physically, and that's kind of when I hit a turning point in my career or in my life, so to speak. I decided to drop some weight, something that people may not see as a big deal. But when you're an offensive lineman and you're at that point in your career, something like 30 pounds just seems like whatever. I mean, that's like 100 pounds off your knees. You know what I mean? And ever since I made that decision, that's probably the best decision I've ever made. Because I knew if it didn't work out, if I was too light, I could always gain that weight back and just fight through another year. But being the weight that I am now, I've played just as good this season as I ever have. And that was probably the best decision I've ever made. So, yeah, I think it was never a question of whether I was ever going to, or whether I was going to stop and not have the desire to play anymore. It was always physically, if I could hold up. And, knock on wood, this is as good as I felt. So, hopefully there's 3 games left guaranteed. So, if I can stay healthy through those, then everything will kind of fall into place.
What would you like to see from the fans on Saturday for your last game here? Traditionally they don't get in their seats real early.
Yeah. I feel like when I was a younger player, it used to always be like, you'd find things wrong. But then I talked to some people who've been in the community and who've been through the bad times, who've been through games when it was at Old Cardinal Stadium, which I think they used to give tickets away. So for me, as I've gotten older, I have a very different perspective. I mean, yeah, they get in their seats a little late, but they're there, and it's a lot better than it's been. And they pack the house, and whenever we're doing well, they're fans and we're players, so we can't blame them if we're not playing well, if we're not showing up. And I think this year they've done a great job. At least that's the biggest crowd that I've ever seen since I've been here. So I feel like, if they got in their seats earlier, I think it gets guys a little more amped up, during the warm-up. But the bottom line is once the game starts and the bullets are flying, it's not like we're thinking, man, I wish they would have shown up during warm-ups, because I might be thinking a little, you know what I mean? Like, it's not really in our minds. But I will say that during those crucial moments, I think the biggest things that a big, loud crowd does for me is it ingrains those moments in my mind. And it creates memories that I'll never forget. I don't know if it has an effect on the game, so to speak, but moments like Cincinnati, moments that I've had over my career, having that big crowd behind you in moments where you're succeeding or you're on like a crucial drive, I think that does more for memories for me more than anything else. I'll always remember moments like that. Obviously, we appreciate all the support, but beggars can't be choosers, so it is what it is. But I feel like they've done a great job all year. But yeah, getting in their seats early would definitely help a little bit during pregame warm-up, and I'm sure it would make Coach Strong happy. So.
Any tears?
Any what?
Any tears in you big rugged football player?
Yeah. You mean Saturday?
Yeah.
Probably. But you know what? It'll probably be after the game. I've been here for a while now, and I've seen senior classes come through, and the toughest guys. I don't. You can say what you want, but it is what it is, and just thinking about it now kind of gets me, emotional. But you work your whole life for something, and although it may not be over for some guys, it's a new chapter, and to see one of those chapters close in your book, it's like, it's just, you just come to the realization that, wow, it's over. Being that I've had the experience to play with a lot of seniors, guys who've come through here, who've taught me what it's like to be a college football player, and seeing them get really upset about it. I can't help but think that, you know, I'll be the same way. It really hasn't settled in yet because it hasn't happened yet. So maybe it will after the game, maybe it will during the game, I don't know. Whenever that moment is, I'm sure I won't be expecting it. So.
Or when you look at, not to change the levity, but when you look at the running game without Sonoris, what changes as far as lineman goes?
Right.
I mean, you know, Jeremy's probably gonna get the bulk, but what does Corbin bring to the running game?
Well, I think Corbin brings a lot of similar things that Sonoris brought, and people saw that in the Syracuse game. He only had a couple touches, I think, but you know, on one of those that he did, you know, he broke a big run. So I think he brings things that are very similar to what Sonoris brings. What is unfortunate about losing Sonoris is, you know, his experience, but I think, you know, Corbin will make up for that just by his competitiveness. You know, I don't think Corbin's the type of guy who would let the bright lights kind of blind him. But you know, when you ask, you know, what do they bring or what does Corbin bring that's different, I feel like they're very similar in their speed. You know, I think that he's shown that. But like I said, it does hurt to lose Sonoris' experience. But Jeremy has more experience than any of them, so you know, I think he'll pick up the load. You know, he's a guy who'll take responsibility for that.
Mario, how you feel about this role you're in right here is kind of maybe having been a spokesman for the team and for the player?
It's always been something that, well, you know, I've always been asked to do that. I've never really thought about it. I feel like maybe I just got it from my parents. They've always been the same way. I'd like to think that a lot of the things that I say up here are things that maybe my teammates would also echo. You know, I've embraced it. I think it's been, even when I was a sophomore, even when I was a younger guy here, I've always been someone who's you know, who's been open to doing things like this. I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary to let the community, let the media, let the fans know what's going on to a certain extent. You know, and if I'm the guy for that job, then you know, then so be it. But you know, I've enjoyed it. I really have. It's an experience that's different than anyone I've ever had. I played football in Texas in high school, so I got a little taste of it, but I don't think anything compares to college football. So you know, it's definitely been fun for me.
What's your reaction to more teams leaving the Big East and Louisville not being part of it?
I'm just now hearing it before I hopped in here, so I really don't know what to think because I don't know all the details yet. But you know, I think with defending Louisville, I mean, I'm not an expert on the subject, and I don't pretend to be, but I feel like it's a no-brainer. I mean, there's just so much that this school has to offer, you know, and now with football on its way up, I mean, and the great athletic director that we have, and I don't know the exact numbers, but I know as far as basketball goes, as far as, you know, making money goes, I know University of Louisville is way up there, and I'm pretty sure Louisville was either 1 or 2 as of last year as far as the basketball team goes, and women's basketball is top 10. I mean, every team is ranked, and UofL pulls in a lot of money, so I don't really know what the issue would be. You know, I'm not in a position to make those type of decisions. But yeah, it does hurt, and although I'm leaving, I'd like to think that you know, my team, who I'm going to root for till the day I die, would be put in a position to succeed. But I mean, whatever happens, whether they stay here, whether they leave, whether they go somewhere else, I mean, they're never going to stop competing. And I think all you can do as players or as, you know, athletes within a program is just keep competing and just try to show people that you belong. That's all you can really do, because nothing you're going to do is going to affect the decision that's made. You know what I mean? So you just keep playing and playing. Like I said, I don't know where we'll end up, but all I know is this year we're in the Big East, so keep trying to get that championship.
What do you think is the best fit for Louisville conference-wise?
I don't know, because I don't know the criteria for, you know, it's obviously not geographically. I mean, everybody's kind of all over the place. I don't really know what factors into that decision. I mean, you would think it's competition, but that may be the last thing on people's minds. I'm pretty sure it's money. I mean, everything's kind of, you know, money driven. I don't know. I really don't know. I heard someone say ACC because soccer and basketball, and you know, I really don't know. As far as football is concerned, I'd always like to be in a conference where, you know, we can show people that we can compete with anybody. People like to think that we play down to somebody's level, but that's just part of being a young team. I like to think that we play up to a lot of teams too. So, you know, I feel like if you give us a shot to play people that are that are good that will definitely give them a game. But honestly, I don't know if I even have an opinion worth noting on that subject because I don't really know. I don't even think the people that are controlling it know really either. So, you know.
What game will stand out in your mind when you leave here?
There's a lot of games, but the one that, I guess I'm going with my gut, the one that popped up in my head when you asked that was probably West Virginia last year, because it was at West Virginia. And I'm not going back there so I can say that. They were throwing batteries and all kinds of stuff at us like a couple years ago, so it was nice to kind of just, I don't know, I'm going to butcher the quote, but I know that someone said the best type of standing ovation is the ovation where the whole, crowd is silent. And, I think it was Jack Lambert, I'm not sure. It might have been him, but that was kind of how I felt about that. And then so to go from pure silence to go in the locker room and it was just everybody was, uproar, and it was just, that's one of the things I'll remember the most. And I don't like to look back on games where we're currently involved in the same season, but I'm sure when it's all said and done, Cincinnati will be one of those. I can't really think of a bunch of them off the top of my head right now, but Southern Miss in the bowl game my sophomore year, that was a really good time mainly because of the group of guys too. It was just a really, really fun time for me. So I'd have to say those three probably.
Not Southern Miss this year?
No, no. I was glad to get out of there. I was snapping the ball. The water was up to my wrist. So I was having to snap it underwater for a good half a second. It was miserable. But we didn't fumble the ball during the exchange. So I was actually kind of proud about that because I think they had a few of them between the center and quarterback. But that was a tough game. That was just a hornet's nest. The turf was bubbled up 6 inches. You couldn't even run without tripping. It was miserable. So no.
Do you have a favorite Sunny Wolfgang moment?
Well, Will's one of my good friends, so he has a lot of those. I don't know if there's, I don't know. I don't get on the blogs, but I've seen people show pictures and things like that. There's a lot of hilarious stuff. I don't know if they've put some pretty messed up. They put some images up there that aren't exactly politically correct. Some of those are my favorite. I don't know. Those are all the posters putting those up. But personally, in person, he's just a funny guy. He does stuff all the time that you're just what was he doing? But I don't know. I'm always gonna be friends with Will, and he's a local guy, and I've had a lot of great moments with Will. We've been really good friends. Those are guys that I'm gonna, just like Coach says. Your college football teammates, you guys are going to be at your wedding, guys that you're going to be friends with forever. There's been a lot of interesting moments with Will. I don't know if there's one that sticks out though.
How come you didn't stay and play football in Texas?
Well, everybody besides UT recruited me, and I was pretty angry about that. So it was Baylor, SMU, and pretty much every school, Texas Tech and A&M. And growing up, I've just been a Texas Longhorn fan. That's just kind of how it was. And they had no interest in me whatsoever. Said I was too small. I was the only all-state lineman that didn't get offered by them, so it kind of left me bitter. And but I was, a 17-year-old kid. I didn't know what I was doing. And so I started looking out of state. And the first school that I committed to was Ole Miss. A lot of people don't realize I was going to Ole Miss. And Coach Alfred, who's now coach at Notre Dame, he called me and said, this is the University of Louisville. And I was like, where's that? I didn't even know where it was. Because regionally, you don't catch a lot of those games. And long story short, I ended up taking a visit and just fell in love with the place. Texas was kind of a thing, and I really, my biggest concern coming out of high school was never, I want to be close to home. I have the type of family who I'm extremely close to, but at a young age, have always instilled in me that you go where it's best for you. I want to get a business degree. Louisville's business school is one of the top in the country. So that was a big factor. And for me, it was always, where can I go, to spend the next 4 or 5 years of my life and possibly longer? Where is that place going to be? Where can I see myself being? And comparing Louisville to everything else, it just felt like home to me, and it does even more now. So that's kind of how I ended up here. But yeah, Texas schools, looking back, it was like, oh man, because as soon as I left, Texas, Baylor all of a sudden comes out of nowhere, TCU, Texas Tech, all these schools that recruited me, who were under 500 teams at the time, were now going to BCS bowl games and stuff like that. People always ask me, do you ever regret leaving Texas? I'm like, no, not at all. I've made more memories here in Louisville than I have, that I could ever imagine making somewhere else. And I've met some people here who, I don't care where you put them on the map, they'll be some of the most important people that I've ever met in my entire life. But yeah, so for me, it was never about being a Texas boy and staying in Texas. It was all about where I felt comfortable.
So are you in grad school now?
No, I'm actually, I could have graduated in the summer, but I'm still an undergrad, but this is my last class. I had one class to 3 hours, and the teacher actually advised me to not take his class in the summer because that's how hard it was. So I took his advice since he was the teacher, and I took it in the fall. He's like, no, you don't want to take my class in the summer. So I'm in one class right now. I'm in 3 hours. It's the last class I need. I could have been done 6 months ago, but I figured if I finished, I would have to start my grad school, and I would have to be in 12 hours again, because I think when you're getting ready to graduate, the 12-hour minimum doesn't apply to you. So I was able to sign a paper, and that's the only reason I'm in 3 hours now. And had I graduated, I would have been taking on my senior year with a full load of schedule. And I don't know if football would have been at the very top of my priority as far as where I could have put it. So now with only taking 3 hours, I can now focus on football, and it's worked out pretty well for me this year.
What's the class?
Free time, yeah.
Not at all, because I make a lot of time for football. So I guess to answer your question, I have a lot of free time as far as outside of school is concerned. But when I'm not in school, I'm up here, and that was kind of my whole train of thought when I did the whole scheduling. When I planned it out a spring ago, I wanted to go out having the best senior year that I possibly could have. And I knew studying film, getting treatment, getting healthy was the best way to do that. So now I have, I'll wake up. I only have class on Monday and Wednesday. So on Tuesday and Thursday, I'll be up here all day, either watching film or getting treatment or getting a massage or doing something, just something every day just to get better with football. Whereas being in the business school the last couple of years, it was always, 3 or 4 hours of school every day, and I would just rush over just to get to practice, So now it's pretty nice. It's definitely the senior year that I was looking to have.
What's your class? What class are you taking? What's
it's a marketing. I'm getting my business marketing degree, so it's my marketing capstone. It's the most horrible class ever. It's awful. We just turned in a 90-page project, and I didn't realize going to UPS and binding this thing was going to cost me $52. So that was also pretty upsetting. I told my group, I was like, I'll go bind it at UPS. They're like, oh, okay, go ahead. And I bind it, and the guy charged me like $50-something. I was like, geez. So that class has hurt me mentally and in my pocket. I hate that class, but I hope he doesn't hear this. But it's
He's already read it on Twitter.
Yeah, it's an extremely challenging class. Everybody who's been to the business school knows that. So that's also another reason why I've wanted to just focus on this class, because even kids in my class who aren't athletes, who are in this class, who are in one other class, who are taking 6 hours, we're like, I don't know how you do football and this class, because this class is a full-time job.
You are passing, right?
Yes, no, I am. Yes, I will graduate December 13th. But
Is it Sharpe?
yep, Sharpe. It's miserable, so it's awful. But it's a good class because it's everything combined that I've learned over the last 4 years. Sometimes it's hard to remember things you learned 4 years ago. So it's a tough class, and he expects a lot from you. And I think this class, coupled with football, is plenty for my plate.
Mario, you're 9-1. You got a chance to an Orange Bowl and all that. When you first got here, what it was like before Charlie, did you think that was possible when you look back at it?
Well, when I initially got here, yeah, I did, because people forget I'm really old. I got here in 08, so it was right after the Orange Bowl. So initially, yeah. Looking back on it, what was it, my freshman year was when my first year started. I think we were 4-8. That was the worst season that we had. I don't think I ever doubted it. I think at the time it was more frustration, and I'm not just saying that just because it's the team that I play for, but that's just the type of personality I have. I never once was like, there's no way we can get back to that. It was more frustration because I knew the type of talent we had, and I knew that we were so close. And I think, it was more of like, we just need to just fix it. And I never once was like, man, might as well give up. You're spending 4 or 5 years of your life somewhere. I think you'd be dumb to think that, there's no shot you have of succeeding, because then it automatically just, avoids all the work that you put into it, and it automatically sets you up for failure in the future, because every workout you do is going to be harder, because in your mind you're like, what's this for? every sprint you do is going to be like, what am I doing this for? So I think in my mind I always had hope, but it is tough whenever things don't go your way because you put all that work into it. I think there was an article I read the other day. It was like 4,000 hours of work like a football player puts in for 12 games, and every year. So it's just. I think it would have been a turning point for the worst in my career had I gone down that path, but I never once did.
How many hours were spent with Call of Duty last?
Me personally, not much. Maybe the other guys spent a little more. Coach Strong seems to think that they did. To be honest with you, this new one already came out. I haven't spent really any time on it. I've been playing video games since I was a little kid. I mean, I was a nerd growing up. I had glasses and braces. I had the whole deal. And video games has never affected me on the field. For me, it's more like those are the two things that I love. It's like spend a lot of time on football. Video games aren't going to take away from that. So I think that whole thing, once it's all said and done, will just go down in history as one of the funnier moments here. I'd like to think it wasn't super serious, but we were a young team last year, and we still are now. But I think the difference is we're more experienced now. So although we're young, I don't think things like that will affect us. If we lose a game, it's going to be because we were outplayed, or we hurt ourselves. I don't think it'll be because of Call of Duty. So.
Anything else from Mario? Can't be anything else.
Actually, I have to go to this capstone at 1 o'clock, so I'm probably late.
Good thing you didn't have.
Oh, 5 minutes.